Hello, everybody, and welcome to the IROs Summit 2026 webinar series presented by NAA and Yardi Breeze. My name is Chris Ulip, Vice President at Yardi. We help thousands upon thousands of independent rental owners and property managers run their business and have been doing so for over 40 years. At Yardi, we firmly believe that great software and technology should be available to all companies, regardless of portfolio size, and for decades now have been at the forefront of helping companies like yours be more productive, efficient, and grow. Today's session is called AI Crash Course for IROs, the playbook for making it work for you. And that title is intentional. This is not a deep technical dive. You don't need to have a background in technology to follow along. We designed this specifically for independent rental owners, people who are running real businesses, managing real properties, and trying to figure out what AI actually means for them. Everywhere you turn these days, you hear about AI. A lot of hype, a lot of jargon, and frankly, a lot of content that isn't built with your world in mind. Our goal today is to cut through that. We want to demystify what AI is, show you some practical ways it's already being used in property management, and give you a framework for thinking about where it fits or doesn't fit in your operation. One of the best things about AI today is that the barrier to entry has never been lower. You don't need to be a programmer or have an IT team to get started. Tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, and Gemini are available right now, many of them free or low cost, and you can start experimenting today. On the personal side, people are using AI to draft emails, summarize long documents, plan their week, and much more. On the professional side, rental owners are using it to write resident communications, respond to maintenance requests, and stay on top of market trends. Tasks that used to take hours now take minutes. I'm pleased to be joined by Joe Consolo, our industry principal at Yardi focused on AI. Joe is passionate about this powerful new technology and how it's making an impact on our industry and where it's going. Welcome, Joe. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Chris. And looking forward to talking with everyone about how companies like Yardi are working with you to drive efficiencies and improved resident communication in your processes.
Well, here's our agenda today. In a short amount of time, we're going to educate you and provide some practical tips and best practices. By the end of this session, our hope is that you walk away feeling informed, not overwhelmed, and maybe even try something new. So whether you're brand new to AI or have dabbled a little, there should be something here for you. Let's get into it. Joe?
Thanks, Chris. We thought we would start today with an overview of what AI is. And when you think about AI, you hear about it all the time. It's in the news, your friends are talking about it, dinner table conversations, it's everywhere. And AI at its essence is very technical. It's science and engineering of creating systems that can learn, reason, and recognize patterns. And that then helps us. It assists us in performing tasks more efficiently than we can do on our own. And with it, we will give you many examples today as we talk through what AI is and how it can help you on how it accomplishes these things. Now, part of the reason that you're hearing a lot about AI is people have been deploying AI successfully. And there's some CEOs that are making some very broad claims and very big claims about what AI is. And here's one from the CEO of Alphabet, who's the parent company of Google. Artificial intelligence will have a more profound impact on humanity than fire and electricity. That one's pretty far reaching and pretty impactful. Maybe has gone a little too far, but this one from Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, I think really hits the mark, where the development of AI is as fundamental as the creation of the microprocessor, the personal computer, the internet, and the mobile phone. We can't argue that those four items, those four fundamental kind of principles and technologies have changed our lives in so many ways. They have made us so much more productive. And AI fits into that category. It is going to be the next tool that is going to make our lives more efficient. And I think Bill Gates really hit the mark with that quote. And tech companies are spending over $1 trillion a year. Here's four examples of top tech companies. And why are companies investing so much in AI? Because they view it as one of those fundamental technologies that is really going to help drive efficiency in our personal lives and our business lives. And with it, it comes a lot of a lot of reasons to use AI. I'll give you a funny example. With all this money that's being spent on AI, what's my daughter using it for? My daughter takes her boyfriend's texts, puts them into ChatGPT, one of the large language models, and analyzes them for periods versus exclamation points. And I said, "Are you really doing that?" I go, men were just not that sophisticated in thinking about periods and exclamation points. And you know what ChatGPT told her? She's overthinking it. So, so long story short, AI is being used for many things by many people, including my daughter's texts. But from a real estate industry perspective, there's a lot of operational pressures in many different places, from margin compression to raising resident expectations. And the opportunity for us to use AI to help drive improvement in these areas, faster cycle times, which means like turning units faster, unburdening your staff where they can handle more work with less effort, basically do more with less. And a good example of that would be like if you have a regional that can go from three properties to four to five by not working harder, but by working more efficiently. And also doing this with guardrails in place where you are confident in how AI is helping you. And then also, when it comes to resident satisfaction, faster responses. AI can work 24/7, 365 days a year, never turn off. So, regardless of what shift or what time your resident wants to communicate with you, there's always someone there to respond to you. And those are where the opportunities where AI can really help drive improvements in businesses. And where we all start with leveraging AI is with large language models. And if you're not familiar with the term large language model, you're going to be familiar with some of the names on the right-hand side of the screen. So we have Copilot, we have Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT. These are all examples of large language models. You've probably had it help you write some text, rewrite an email, draft a resident communication, things like that. And what large language models can do and what they are just tremendous tools that understand large amounts of data. They are trained with very large amounts of data. We're talking about all the words in the English language, and by the way, can translate into over 120 different languages. Reasoning and words from billions of books and websites, and they even understand code. And what it does is it can help you answer questions, write texts, write codes, summarize very large documents, like very large legal documents. This is having a big impact in the legal world. Help you reason through problems and understand data in context and be able to then respond in context that makes sense. And so many applications for how large language models are being used in all types of industries. But in real estate, we'll talk through a few examples of how this is being used as we go through. But large language models have transformed how AI is helping businesses. And one of the things that I run into a lot is that a lot of teams let their employees use their own logins, their own version of these large language models. Like, for example, say ChatGPT. Let's say Chris and I have our own logins that are our personal accounts. They're free versions, they're not paid. Well, what happens when we put our chats into those tools. And we also sometimes may upload a document. That data is being used to train the large language model. That data is not being kept private. And one of the best practices for using large language models is, from a company perspective, have a paid version that you deploy to your team to use. So pick one, have a paid version of it. And one of the things we're highlighting here is, with paid versions, there are controls in the settings where you can turn off data sharing. And when you turn off data sharing, what that allows you to do is keep your data private. Basically, your data is not being used to improve their large language model. It's being kept private. And that protects you in case someone happens to put in PII, any personal information that you just don't want to share. It protects you from people accidentally doing that. So, best practices: have a paid version, turn data sharing off. And then we'll also get into some best practices around how to prompt AI to be able to get the best results. But that's another key best practice around large language models. So, with that, Chris, let's talk about an example of how you can use a large language model.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for that important information and best practices. A great place to start is to use an LLM in your personal and professional life. So perhaps an easy way to wrap your head around it is engage with it in conversation, like a knowledgeable colleague or friend. Planning a vacation, picking a recipe, ask a question. It'll give you an answer. And then you can follow up, go deeper, change direction. A true back and forth until you get the information you're looking for. Try it sometime. Something like, I'm planning a trip to Nashville for 4 days with my family. We love food and outdoor activities. What should we do? You'll get a fully thought out itinerary in seconds, and you can keep the conversation going and fine tune from there. Now, let's bring the same idea into your world as a property manager. Let's say you want to host a community event for your residents, maybe a summer cookout or back to school night. So instead of, getting stuck trying to think of ideas and where to start, open up ChatGPT and say, I manage a 24 unit apartment community and want to host a resident appreciation cookout this summer. Help me put together a simple plan, including a budget, supply checklist, and a flyer I can post in the common area. Well, within seconds, you have a starting point, a draft budget broken down by category, a checklist of what to buy, and even a ready to edit flyer. You don't need to hire anyone. You don't need to search a lot of different websites or spend your entire afternoon on it. That's the power of conversational AI. It's not magic, it's just very fast and a very well read assistant that's ready to help you the moment you start talking to it. So if you haven't tried it yet, that's your homework from today. Pick something on your to-do list tonight, personal or professional. Just start a conversation. You'll do what techies call prompt engineering, the practice of crafting your instructions to AI so you get better, more useful examples. So now, Joe, you have some good and bad examples of prompt engineering to share.
That's right. Yeah, so the better you get at prompting large language models, the better results you're going to get. And I'll show you a bad example to start. And so, a bad example, it's very short, not much detail. Write an email to a resident about a parking problem. Okay, this is overly simplistic. And this is what AI will give you back, which is, your vehicle is parked in violation of our parking policy. So, first of all, what if the family has two vehicles? Which vehicle is it? And please correct the problem as soon as possible. And so this is very short, not very detailed, and doesn't really help the resident understand what the problem is. By getting more specific and better in prompting AI, you can get a better result, which will then result in the resident doing what you really want them to do. So let's take that bad example and expand on it. So, an example of a good prompt, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but basically, in the very beginning, we're asking it to write a professional but friendly email to the resident. So we're telling AI that I want to be, I want to have a very nice request. I don't want it to be like I'm angry. I don't want it to be threatening. So have a request and it tells me specifically who the resident is, which vehicle it is, and where it's specifically parked. And by doing this, it's going to be able to write a more detailed description, a more detailed email of how I want the resident to act, and also what the expectation is. Move it within 24 hours. So we saw our bad example of an output. And so here is the good example where we have the specific resident that we're addressing. We're talking about the car and where it's parked and which car was parked there. Um, Number one, the resident can confirm, yes, that is my car and it was parked there. Okay, so it makes it more real for them that, yeah, I parked somewhere I shouldn't have. Versus, I don't even know if you're talking about my car. I think my car's fine. And then it's talking about what the policy is. And then what the expectation is in terms of where to move it. And if you have questions, to reach out to us. So a lot more professional, a lot more detailed, and more likely to get the action that you're looking for. So the better you get at prompting AI to give you what you need, the better results you're going to get. And so here are some best practices. So number one, especially the difference between the first and the second, it was much more specific and clear what we were looking for. We weren't leaving AI up to interpret what we want. We were very specific to tell it what we wanted. Provide the context, the background in terms of what you wanted to do and why. And we even gave it constraints, like be professional in terms of the tone and friendly. We talked about the output format that was going to be an email, and again, going back to professional and friendly. Um, we use positive instructions like do this instead of don't do this. We're telling it specifically what we want it to do, not what we don't want it to do. We used examples where we gave it like the car, specific cars, specific parking spaces. And you can even assign like a role and persona. You could tell it who you are. Like, I'm a property manager. I want you to write it from a property manager perspective. Or um, you might want to write it from an accounting perspective or an asset management perspective. It helps AI think in terms of what your role is, in terms of how to write that email. And then also break it down into specific tasks and steps. And, like we talked about who the resident was, what their car was, what space it was in, what the policy was, how quickly we want them to resolve it. AI can take those different elements and craft a better output for you. So those are just some examples of best practices around prompting, and internalize these because the better you get at this, the better results you're going to get from your AI models. And Chris, we can also use this for image editing. And so hand it to you to give us an example there.
Indeed, indeed, it's not just about words, and image editing is so powerful, and it requires zero design experience to use. So check this out. The example you're seeing here is one I did myself using ChatGPT. I found a photo, the kind of photo you might use for a property listing, and there's cars parked in the shot. Well, that may not be ideal for what you're trying to show off on your curb appeal. So instead of hiring a photographer to reshoot the image or a designer to retouch it, simply uploaded the image and typed a prompt. Remove the car from the image and fill the space with natural continuation, surrounding background, maintaining consistent lighting. Look at this. Within seconds, the car was gone and the background filled in seamlessly as if they were never there. So think about what this means practically. Property photos, they're so important to what you do to attract prospective residents. Cluttered driveway, a dumpster in the background, a car that shouldn't be in the shot. These are things that require professional fix, at least it used to. So today you could do this yourself from your phone or your laptop in just very little time, and it's very low cost. So this is one a great example of what these kind of tools can do. It's very practical for what you're doing every day with your properties. And again, you don't need to know anything about photo editing. You just need to be able to describe what you want, which, as we're talking about, is exactly what good prompting is.
Excellent. So, Chris, we just talked through some examples of how to use large language models to help you with text, with image editing, and it can do so much more. One of the things that you have probably heard of is a term called agentic AI. This is some of the more advanced AI techniques that there are. And when people hear about agentic AI, a lot of times it gets confusing about how that differs from other types of AI and even traditional automation. So let's look at the two ends of the spectrum to start. Let's look at traditional automation and agentic AI. So with traditional automation is you give it rules, it follows those rules, and it follows those tasks that you prescribed in a very specific order. And those constraints are put on it by the person that programmed that. Now, with agentic AI, what you're doing is you're giving AI context and helping it understand the context of the situation, giving it some guidelines about how to choose its next actions because agentic AI can actually choose next actions and make decisions and can even take that even into completing specific tasks all the way to multi-step workflows. And also, you can help it understand when to escalate and not make a decision and to bring a human in the loop to make the decision where AI might not have the context and background to make that decision. And so agentic AI basically takes us from very rule-based to more context-based decision making. And just to give you kind of a spectrum on AI, when we think about different types of AI, a real simple way to understand these, analytical AI is help me understand, perform an analysis, and summarize the data for me. Generative AI is tell me or show me something. So, like a good example of that was the image that Chris modified. That's an example of generative AI. It's basically showing you an image of something that you asked it to show you different. And then we have agentic AI, which is do it for me. This is where you can really have powerful impacts on business processes, where it can start automating business processes and taking into account many things that you traditionally may not have programmed for and haven't thought of ahead of time. AI can understand history to be able to make decisions going forward in time. And so agentic AI is even more powerful than generative and analytics. And more solutions for agentic AI are coming out for real estate. And we're going to give you a couple examples of those. And and when we talk about these examples, they'll have a tendency to fall into categories like this. And so real estate companies are focused heavily on AI, whether it's investor driven or leadership driven or resident driven on how to become more efficient and to be more responsive. It's helping real estate companies transaction based. So, in the leasing process is a great example. Speeding up the time to respond to residents, speeding up the time from lead that you receive to the time they move in. That's a great example. Training, automatically creating training content, online user help and support that can help people immediately instead of bothering their neighbor next to them and asking them for help, and now decreasing the productivity of both team members. Operations, month-end processing. There's a lot of accounting functions that go into month-end. This is probably the number one request I personally get for help is help me streamline my month-end processing so my accounting team can be freed up to focus on more productive things. And even owner reporting is another area where this is helping a lot because what you're able to do is to automatically assemble owner reports that typically take dozens of hours by team members to be able to create. And then also, you can use agentic AI to help give you insights into your data. It can look at basically very complex data elements. It can look at many different charts and graphs, hundreds of pages, and it can summarize it into an output that's easily digestible with the main points that you have to focus on and almost being used as an analyst. And so those are some examples of where it can be deployed. And so let's get to some very practical examples. And so with that, Chris, let's start with one.
One of my very favorite applications built into property management software is around AP invoice processing. We know that's one of the most time-consuming tasks. You can greatly reduce the time you and your team are keying in data or chasing down approvals and doing paperwork. With AI-powered invoice processing, the system reads the invoice for you, captures the vendor, the amounts, the dates automatically, and this means your team can stop spending their day on data entry and spend it on things that need human judgment, like reviewing exceptions or building vendor relationships. Really, it's great. Free them up for more to do more meaningful work without adding headcount. So, Joe, what are some built-in agents in property management software that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, one of the most common use cases has to do with prospect, applicant, and resident interactions. And the reason this is important is think about a traditional leasing agent that has an 8-hour workday. Well, residents don't always line up with that kind of traditional 8-hour workday, or let's say your 10-hour workday or 12 hours. There's a part of the day that's not being covered by your team. And so leveraging AI for whether it's a voice phone call, whether it's through texts, emails, or even through a chat window on your website, to able to respond quickly and accurately with the information that a prospect needs, or a resident may want to um, have a work order created. And sometimes you can use it for even resident help for self-service. Like if a garbage disposal stopped working, maybe it was just the circuit breaker underneath the garbage disposal. That's just a press of a button for them, and they may want to self-service on their own. And so being able to get answers immediately, accurately, and in the context that you want is helping people in basically in real estate rent properties faster, keep more people engaged in that leasing pipeline, and really to do it with a personal touch because agentic AI is able to do it with your tone in your context. So, in other words, if you want to be friendly and if you want to be open and very personal, like if they have a dog and you want to reference the dog by name, AI can remember those type of things and always bring that back up. Reference it to your pet policy and tell residents and prospective residents, does the pet fit within your policy or not? Things like that are being answered 24/7, 365 days a year real time, and it's really having a huge impact on leasing faster and filling those units so that it has a positive impact on your bottom line. Another good example is in the area of maintenance. And tied in with maintenance, when you have a move out, you want to do a unit turn inspection. And so taking AI to help your maintenance team reduce admin time of updating everything in your property management software. Another example of where we can take agentic AI is on unit turn inspections. Every time you do a unit turn, you want to inspect that unit by your maintenance team to make sure it's in the same condition as when the resident took it over. And so in this case, you're taking a smartphone and an app and you're walking the unit. And let's say you're in the kitchen and you see that the faucet has to be replaced. And maybe you're in bedroom one and you have to paint the walls. Maybe you're in bedroom two and you have a stain on the carpet, so you have to clean it or replace it. You take that video, you take that transcript, and it automatically will create the inspection record. It automatically will create the work orders associated with that inspection. And what this is doing is reducing the maintenance admin time for your maintenance team so they can increase the time actually turning the unit and doing the work. Additionally, agents can even take those work orders, put them in context, and even go out and shop for the items required to complete those work orders. So, agentic AI, three examples that we just showed you where, real applications for property management are having a big impact on property management operations. And so, switching gears away from examples to just a couple things to think about as you deploy AI within your organization. Security is, I'm sure, one of the first things that's going to be on your mind. So, number one is you want to make sure your data is stored in a secure cloud environment that you trust. That way, you know that your data is secure. Number two, when your users go to access using AI tools, you want to make sure that the permissions that they have in your property management software carry forward with them through the use of these tools. And they can't use AI to get around their security. That's a really critical feature that you need to look for in an AI solution. And then lastly, we talked about this one earlier with your large language models, having a license like an enterprise license that allows you to turn data sharing off where your data is being kept private. And those are some best practices around security with AI. Now, we talked about all this. The business impact can be quite broad. You can free up resources. You can improve ROIs on projects. That lead to lease time that we talked about. People are having dramatic reductions in lead to lease times. When it comes to resident communication, we talked about examples where you can speed up the responsiveness of your communication to keep more prospects engaged, to help your residents real time. And, all of this can help you reduce time that people are spending on things that can free up your people to manage more tasks, more properties, more whatever. It can reduce your cost structure. And in some cases, it can even help you make sure that you're checking your revenue. Like, for example, do I have all my charges from my lease accurately captured in my property management software? Things like that can have a huge impact on your business to make sure that you continue to operate efficiently. And this leads me to kind of a closing thought that I have. So, this is a quote from me. The future leaders of the rental housing industry will be the ones to leverage AI to transform their businesses. I firmly believe this. The companies that leverage AI the most are going to be the ones that are going to have the strongest future in the real estate industry. And so, my advice to you is if you're not familiar with these tools, get to know them, help your staff get to know them, and take advantage of them for your business. And with that, Chris, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Joe, so much for all this really great information. This brings us towards the conclusion here of our webinar session at the IRO Summit. And you all, independent rental owners, whether you've got a few properties, a single property, or many, many units indoors that you're owning and operating, you are leaders and you serve to gain a lot from AI tools, perhaps even more so than large organizations. So, what I want you to take away is one thing in particular today. You don't have to do everything all at once. Start with one task, one tool, maybe one conversation, and let AI take a first pass at something that's been taking your time and see what happens. The IROs who experiment today are the ones who will be ahead of the curve as the years proceed. So we've covered a lot of ground, and from what AI actually is, how to prompt effectively, and to where it's already making a difference in operations. Joe and I hope we gave you a nice foundation to build on and maybe the confidence to go try something this week. The QR code you see on your screen links you to an article with some more good practical tips to help you get started. So thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly. Our contact information is right here on the screen. We'd love to hear how you're using AI in your business. Thank you.